Why not go to anywhere else? Why this industry? Why home services?
I'll come to the why home services in just 30 seconds. The truth was very similar to you guys. We didn't start with home services originally. We started selling to small businesses like my mom. 90% of revenue moves through the call center.
Yes, because you're getting calls every single time.
At 90% of every dollar home service business makes needs to go through the CSR. CSR had to take that lead and convert it into a job. So you have people that literally can make 10 times as much money as like a mediocre person.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Rilla Labs. I am your host, Sebastian Jimenez, the founder and CEO of Rilla. And today I have the pleasure of talking to a good friend of mine, the founder of Avoca AI, Tyson Chen. Thank you so much for coming to the Rilla Labs today. Tyson.
My man, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Congrats on the new office as well. It's
oh yeah, this
incredible.
is, people can't tell, but we basically moved into a bigger floor of the same building. So the studio looks the same, but the floor is just bigger. So we're moving. We actually moved down because the floor is closer, but the floor is bigger. Yes, thank you. Yes. And you have you signed a lease recently.
We did around 3 months ago. We got a new office in the Flatiron district in Manhattan.
Yeah, so we're in Queens. He's in Flatiron. They like to be fancy. We're kind of like to be here in Queens. So it's like 20 minutes to get here?
Yeah, like 25 minutes.
Okay, very cool. So New York startups building AI for the trades. I feel like New York is becoming the hub of that.
Yes.
Because George from ProBook, we had him on the show a few weeks ago. Well, I guess his office is here. He comes here all the time, but he's in New York.
Here, yeah. he's kind of a nomad. I think.
He's traveling all the time because he's visiting customers. So there's a lot of AI startups building for the trades in New York. It's a great time. So Tyson, for those watching, we have some of the top contractors in the country watching the Rilla Labs. For those of them who don't know who you are and what Avoca does, why don't you tell them the elevator pitch, what you do, a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So Avoca, really easy. We are the leading AI call center platform for the trades. Always think about each trades business having three main pillars for the chair. You have marketing, where you get all the leads. You have your call center, and then you have the infield operations and sales. And I think the number one most neglected aspect and part of the chair is the call center. And that's where we come in. We help to optimize booking rates by providing an AI CSR solution, as well as an AI coach that is able to coach and grade every single call.
I like AI coaches, man.
Yes, I know you do. I know you do.
But you also have you guys have that 24-hour service. Right?
Exactly. 24/7. Yeah. The easiest way I like to describe it is 24/7 AI CSR. Anything your CSR can do, our AI agent CSR can do as well, but more consistently. And instead of, like a lot of answering services that might take 30 seconds, a minute to pick up the call, we handle every call on the first ring 24/7, even if there's 1,000 calls that come in at the same time.
So it's basically, a homeowner calls and it's 2 a.m. in the morning. And instead of using some sort of offshore kind of, AI AI call center, or no, just a call center,
A remote call center.
A remote call center. Yeah. Your solution is basically an AI agent that answers the phone.
Yes.
So it's a robot that sounds like a human being. It's a robot
that sounds extremely human-like, has human-like tendencies, tonalities, can speak multiple languages. That's a big hit as well. Can speak like Spanish, based on like whoever is calling. And exactly, it's able to handle every call on the first ring. So it's able to book at both a higher rate and is just, it won't ever call out sick.
I want to dig in here, but I just want to stop and kind of I just want everybody to notice what Tyson's just said. It's like he's literally talking about an AI that's answering the phones, talking like a human, booking the meetings, right?
Yes.
For contractors, completely automated.
Yes.
And I remember the first time I heard about you, I think it was a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. It was in the summer of 2023.
Right.
When I started hearing about, ChatGPT comes out in 2022 at the end of it. GPT-4 comes out at the beginning of 2023. And you have a lot of companies using AI to automate a lot of tasks.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you started seeing a lot of startups building for home service contractors at the same time. I always talk about this, like AI for the trades, and how so many startups like you and so many other people are building natively for the trades. And I remember yours was pretty much the only company that I saw that was doing this specifically for home service contractors.
Exactly.
And this was a year and a half ago. And I remember thinking, I was like, holy crap, like it's happening. Because I remember I remember having this idea, like when GPT-4 came out, my co-founder, Michael, who you know,
Yeah.
he told me like, oh, dude, call center. He told me the idea immediately. He was like, call center.
Yeah.
And there's so many people out there doing it. There's so many people like that are building AI call centers for different industries, for generalized business purposes. So there's like so many of them now. But you chose to come to home services specifically.
Yes.
And why don't you tell everybody how old you are and where did you, tell them how you got here, because you're like, what, like 24, 25?
No, I'm 29.
You're 29. Oh, so you're my age. Amazing. Yes.
Let's go.
I just had George on the podcast. He was like, I'm 12.
Yeah, I remember
George
that.
is like 22. So,
Just
but
out
you
of
like,
college.
you went to MIT, right?
I did, yeah.
And you're building a startup specifically for home service contractors,
Yeah.
which was not the norm for young founders, a decade ago.
Not at all.
And so what brought you here? All the different industries that you could have gone. Why home services?
Yeah, so I'll answer the why home services question in a minute, but maybe first, I think an important bit of context is why I even got into this space to begin with. So I've been, graduated MIT 2017, essentially been working in AI my entire career. So way before ChatGPT came out, my co-founder and I were in the lab, AI labs back at MIT and working on research. So it's really been a passion of ours and how to apply AI to the real world. So I spent around 3.5 years working on self-driving cars in Silicon Valley. Before that was in consulting, but focused a lot of my attention on bringing cutting-edge AI applications into Fortune 500 companies. But I think even before all the AI stuff, what really got us excited about this particular problem statement is actually in my childhood.
So Tyson, founders, they typically don't come to home services as their first starting point. You went to MIT. You did a lot of interesting things. Why don't you tell everybody, why did you get here? Why not go to anywhere else? Why this industry? Why home services?
Yeah, so I'd love to touch on that. I'll come to the why home services in just 30 seconds, but maybe I think a bit of good background would be kind of my journey into AI to begin with, and call centers in particular. So the initial days, it all started back at MIT, where I met my co-founder, Apoorv. We're working in the AI labs together, and really that's been the story of my entire career. Last 10 years has been, how do we apply practical applications of AI into the real world to make a difference in communities and in people's everyday lives. And so that's why before starting Avoka, I was at a self-driving car startup, Neuro, in Silicon Valley for 3.5 years. Before that, I was working in consulting, working on helping bring the first wave of chatbots, way before there was ChatGPT into the world. So that's really kind of the initial journeys. And then, in terms of the call center and why that was particular interest, it really started for both my co-founder and I back when we were kids. When I grew up, my parents are immigrants to this country. I grew up in a very rural part of the country, in a small town in Pennsylvania called York, Pennsylvania. My mom was one of the first ever acupuncturists. And so when I was a kid, I was actually the one handling a lot of her calls because of her pretty thick accent. And so I learned, even as a kid, the importance of handling the call the right way every time and how mission critical that was to the business.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah. She was,
Did you try selling Avoka to your mom's business now?
I did. So that comes to kind of the next part is how do we find home services, right? Of all the industries, why do we choose home services? The truth was very similar to you guys. We didn't start with home services originally. We started selling to small businesses like my mom's, but obviously acupuncturists. You've talked about this in previous podcasts, but really the most important thing a startup to get right is the market. And if you look at the total number of acupuncturists in the United States, there's just not that many.
Yeah.
And most of the time, these businesses are also pretty small, so they don't have the kind of disposable income to really pay a lot for software. So then we started looking at a much bigger market, which was restaurants. There's restaurants everywhere, and they're taking a lot of calls, and a lot of this stuff can be automated. It's very easy ordering. Turns out, though, the issue with restaurants was a couple of things. One, distribution was very difficult, and primarily the big thing was we were not solving a hair on fire problem. So we went through Y Combinator. I think one of the biggest things that YC teaches
and Y Combinator, for everybody watching, is like the most famous startup accelerator, probably one of the best investors in the world if you think about them as an investment firm.
I think if you look at purely from the perspective of capital deployed to returns, they probably are the number one investor.
Yeah, for people watching, they funded startups like Airbnb, came out of Y Combinator, Dropbox, Stripe. There was a
DoorDash.
DoorDash. What was the car company company that got acquired.
Cruise,
Twitch, which started as Justin TV.
Justin TV,
but, like pretty much all the best startups in the world come out of Y Combinator. So, but continue.
Yes. Hopefully we'll be on that list
of the top 100 YC startups.
The Mount Rushmore of YC. One day.
So, and Sam Altman, the guy who's basically the founder or the CEO of OpenAI, he was the president of Y Combinator. He
ran Y Combinator for many years.
But anyways, continue.
YC has always preaches that when you're looking at a market and you're trying to solve a problem, you need to solve something that is the number one problem, the hair on fire problem, that if they can't solve this problem, the business just doesn't run well.
Yeah.
And what we realized for restaurants was the matter of phone calls wasn't their number one pain point. Because only less than 20% of their revenue came from phone calls. There's just so much that comes from online ordering and then direct, going to the restaurant, so that it didn't contribute to much of the revenue. And then if you think about the opportunity cost per poorly handled call or missed call, it's a lot lower. It's only maybe like $40, $50, $30 sometimes per call. And then when we discovered the home services around a bit over a year ago, it was massively different. And both on the distribution side and on the hair on fire problem side, it was significantly better. Because a single missed call for an HVAC company, guess how much that? I mean, how much
it's like thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars could be even.
If it's an HVAC replacement,
if it's a replacement, it could be upwards of $40,000.
Yeah.
So you have orders of magnitudes more important opportunities to
and a much higher
handle the
call volume as well.
Much higher call volume, and they're already spending a lot of money on existing solutions. They're already paying a lot
for offshore call centers.
For offshore call centers, or like if you staff 10 CSRs during the day, that could easily be $600,000, $700,000, $500,000 you're spending a year. So they're already spending on the solution. The solutions are terrible, and so we just saw this magnificent opportunity. And I think the other thing which you guys also realized very early on is that this is such a unique industry where it's A, massive, but B, it's very close knit, and all the top folks talk to each other. And so what we discovered early on is when we really focused and we had a few select design partners that we perfected the product for. And once we got those folks to be champions of the product and really, buy in and see the ROI, we just started spreading like wildfire. And so CAC became virtually zero. I mean, you guys helped us quite a bit as well with how much you...
I saw what you did, and it's just this is what I believed, right? When we came into this space, right?
Yeah.
We believe like the same thing you saw, right? We had the exact same story. Our problem is different, right? But for startups, it's like you have to find that market. When people talk about product market fit, a very important side of the equation is the market side of the equation. And so you have to find a market which has that problem that your product solves, but it's the number one problem in their company. It's not just problem number 5 or problem number 20.
Exactly.
It's like, yes, restaurants, they might have this problem, but yes, it's not the number one problem. They're not thinking
it's
not top of
it's
mind
a vitamin. You give them a vitamin instead of a painkiller.
The owner of the restaurant is not scratching their head every day thinking about how they solve their call problem.
Exactly.
Whereas the home service contractor is.
90% of revenue moves through the call center.
Yes, because you're getting calls every single time.
At 90% of every dollar home service business makes needs to go through a CSR. CSR had to take that lead and convert it into a job.
And the same thing we found for us, we're a coaching product, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. Why so many AI solutions for home services? Because for us, it was we started a virtual ride-along product. We started selling to other industries. We actually sold in food and beverage. People who would sell to restaurants. People who would sell to retailers. We tried to sell to retailers and stuff like that. And they all have the problem. They all have salespeople. They have service people. They have people that are out there talking to people that you could coach them.
You can improve
and help them. Face to face, very similar.
You guys work with car dealerships.
We worked with so many
luxury,
anything in sales, in sales or outside service. Face to face. And what we realized was the same thing that you realized is that if you ask the CEO of Coca-Cola, who is your top salesperson, you go, I don't know. It depends. Because for Coca-Cola, the salesperson is just one variable in the equation of selling and making revenue.
Yeah.
That for Coca-Cola, number one thing that matters is brand.
The brand, that's the
it's
thing.
Distribution, getting to more locations.
The channels,
the shelf placement in the store.
Yes.
The pricing and the promotions that you do with the retailer. And then the salesperson is one of the equations.
Yes.
And so when they do ride-alongs with the salesperson, a lot of the times, most of the times, they don't even want to see what the salesperson's saying. They just want to see the shelf.
Yeah.
The managers go into the store to see what's...
Because that's what actually matters.
That's what matters.
That's
it's
what
like
driving...
yes.
That's the key input to driving
When
revenue.
we got to home services, what we realized is like the number one business driver for these businesses is their people.
Yes.
You talk about the 90% of the revenue that goes to the CSRs. 100% of the revenue goes to the technician.
Exactly.
And so
exactly.
we realized like, holy crap. When we asked them, hey, how much do you care about coaching? And who's your top salesperson? CEO of Renewal by Anderson, or
Easily
CEO
know
of
that.
FH Fur. They go, Tiffany, Bob, John, and they got married last week, and they're doing their honeymoon. Because those are their top business drivers. Because they're people. So it's a very people-oriented business.
Absolutely.
Where people really care about coaching and training their people.
And
This
they
is the number one problem.
it can make a huge and the thing is, performance can also vary so dramatically.
Oh my God.
You have people that literally can make 10 times as much money as like your top salespeople can make 10 times as much money as like a mediocre person.
Just talking to you right now, I think I kind of had these theories of why there's so many AI startups or so many startups in general coming after home services, particularly now. Obviously, there's all the money that's in the space now with all the private equity. We work with a lot of them, right?
Absolutely.
COVID, people living in, moving from cities into the suburbs and spending more time at home. It means that home service contractors just grow like crazy, and you've seen that. I've seen that. So there's so much money. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal talking about the new
generation of millionaires.
Class. The new millionaire class is the home service contractors. The plumbers and the HVAC techs and the electricians, and I've seen we know people like that. Like we know the millionaires,
they're
right?
fantastic,
Like Phil from Lee's Air, he's a millionaire technician. That's what he does. He's not an owner. He's a technician. He's been a technician all his life. He's a multi-millionaire technician.
I remember our good buddy Michael Hirsch telling me about
from Rescue Air,
and he was telling me about how by being the top salesperson, HVAC salesperson at his previous company before he started Rescue, the amounts he was making per quarter was astronomical.
It's like, and there's a new article that just came out, I think last week, where people are talking about like how kids, like 18-year-olds, are opting to go into the trades instead of going to college because it's just more lucrative. Like why, it's
pure EV wise, it makes a ton of sense. You skip out on all the crazy tuitions and you go right to work.
So and I see it. I literally I'm thinking of the people that I know. It's like, that is the millionaire class in HVAC. So there's so much money in the space.
Yes.
But one thing with AI,
and way higher margins in restaurants too.
And so it's a high margin industry.
So much.
It's a high margin industry where you can actually invest in R&D and you can invest in technology.
Exactly.
They're super entrepreneurial minded because it's not an industry that's been, all the people in the industry, even the private equity, when they acquire these companies, it's been built by entrepreneurs.
Yes.
By very entrepreneurs that are very willing to take risk and
they're
look at new technologies.
Once a lot of them, the successful ones, are numbers driven. Like they make decisions based on data, and what can drive better business outcomes and improve their P&L.
And
very pragmatic.
And that's also very true. Like from a lot of the industries that we looked at, a lot of people, they tend to make decisions based on their gut and intuitions. These contractors are very data driven with their businesses, and especially when they scale and when they get to a certain size. One thing that I'm just realizing talking to you is, if you notice, and this is a good question for you, I think too, a lot of AI applications, that you see out there being deployed, this is from what I've seen, including you, and I want to ask you about this, is not necessarily, it hasn't replaced workforces yet, but it's more assisting or complementing the natural capabilities of human beings. And one of the reasons why I think there's so many AI startups coming after the trades today, I mean, we were early. we were early, but now there's so many.
Oh, there's a new one every day.
Literally, but for the trades, it's not just new AI startups. It's AI startups coming for the trades, right?
Yes.
For marketing, for sales, for coaching, for operations, for inventory planning.
Yes.
For so many. One of the things I'm thinking about is because one of the hypotheses I'm getting is maybe it's because these businesses in particular are so people driven. Like they care so much about their people and enhancing their people, and they have the disposable income to do that when you get a new new AI application that can enhance the natural capabilities of human being that you have in your business, then it just, you know what I mean? It becomes so obvious for this business.
Yeah.
Because that's why we came here. It's like, we have a coaching product. You have to care about coaching your people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You have a call center product that now does coaching too.
Yeah.
Because you started with, I think you started with the 24-hour service.
We started with 24-hour service.
So talk about that. Talk about, why did you say, okay, not just let's do the 24-hour service. Why go into the coaching as well? Because now you're basically doing a version of Rilla for the call center.
Exactly.
So why did you decide to do that?
Really, the decision was, there was twofold. One is that a lot of our customers were just asking for it. It's like, you guys already do everything else in our call center. Can you add this piece on? They were it was really from the customers. They're like begging us for this solution. Two is there's actually a very natural flywheel effect and synergy with our AI, where when we're able to listen to the calls and understand the different nuances, tonalities, and what people are doing, we're actually able to use that data and drive that to improve the AI model as well. So the AI is able to handle objections better and be even more effective. Is really, the synergy, and then kind of the necessity from our early customer.
What's interesting about the 24-hour service is that for you, it's like your use case. You didn't even start replacing a human CSR. You started replacing, but it was the offshore.
But it was, we wanted to, our philosophy was, what is the number one pain point right now with the call center that everyone hates?
Right.
And when you probably poll 100 people and 90 of them will say, the biggest frustration is my after-hours call center.
Why was the frustration? What was the frustration?
The reason for this is that, many reasons, but most of the time, abandonment rate. So even if a really good after-hours answering service has a 30-second average hold time, that means that there's probably at least 20% of your calls that's not going to be answered for at least a minute. Right out of the bat, if you're swinging a baseball bat 100 times and you just remove 20 of them, that's what you're doing to yourself.
Yeah.
You're literally getting away. They're
just not answering the call.
20 at-bats because you don't even get to answer the call. So you're already handicapping yourself with that in mind, just the whole times. And then on top of that, these answering services, they're not just answering for, your business. They're answering for your business and 120 other businesses. And so it's just so difficult to keep consistency. And so that's why if you ask like many contractors about their answering services, they've probably changed it at least 5 or 6 times in the last 2 years, because they'll find one, it's okay, and then it,
and it's not a job that their people can do either, because it's literally after hours.
It's after hours, overflow, weekends. So it's a terrible pain point. A lot of times they're offshore folks, and so you know as well as anyone in this industry, when you pick up the phone, you want to talk to someone that sounds like they're
from your community,
right, from your community, and knows you, right. That trust is extremely important. So right off the bat, lack of consistency, 20% abandonment rate. That you can just, you don't even get a shot at closing that deal, the accents, and then generally just, a lack of quality control.
And so you're doing, and now you're basically doing,
and doesn't even book into most of the time doesn't even book into your CRM.
And
it's just a glorified voicemail at that point.
Interesting.
They can't go into ACP
because they don't have access
see
to
what availabilities are. There's very, very few that can. I'm not going to say all, but I'd say like 80-90% of the normal answering services that people use before they switch to Avoka are ones that can't book into Service Titan, can't book into House Call Pro.
So that's very clear what the difference is, right, between an AI answering service versus an offshore call center. Because people are not switching from Avoka 5 to 6 times.
Not at all. Not at all.
Because you guys answer the call 100% of the time. So you told us the problems. Now tell us how Avoka solves all of those problems, at least for the 24-hour service.
So the first thing I'll say, which I always love saying, on all our onboarding calls, is that AI agent, it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to come in from day one and just be your number one CSR, never make a mistake. However, when the AI agent, it will make a lot of mistakes, but it will only make the same mistake once. And that's a big insight, because when you think about normal call centers and normal CSRs, even your highest performing CSRs, you can coach them, train them, they can be great, but they're human. They're going to make mistakes,
many times.
Many times.
Many times. And that's the whole thing with sales coaching. It's like you're literally trying to get people to do the same thing over and over again and do it well.
And there's a lot of human elements to it, right? You can try to implement a philosophy for coaching, but sometimes the human side is going to come into play. Maybe they feel like really bad for a customer, customer. There's just some other factors in play. They're not feeling well that day. And so they make suboptimal decisions. And so with the AI, you have that complete control. You set the rules, and then the AI executes the way that you as the business owner wants it to. And so anyhow, the solution, back to the main point, is that first, answer every time, which is very important, because answering on the first or second ring increases your booking rate by around 15%, even compared to when you answer the phone like within the first 30 seconds, which is very interesting, right? Counterintuitive that by answering the phone on the first 2 rings, that in itself increases booking rates by that much, even if you answer the phone like relatively quickly.
Because some people don't even wait 30 seconds.
Not that. Even if they pick up and you get them on the phone, I think what we believe is that the tone that you set in the beginning from hearing that instant pickup already puts the customer in that mood and thinking, wow, this is amazing customer service. They're so attentive.
Interesting.
And so that is huge. So first, answer every time. Ability to be consistent. Ability to take your top performing CSR's voice, and so to be able to actually use that human-like voice.
It sounds like your top performer every time.
And then, as I mentioned before, book directly into your CRM. So instead of just being a glorified note taker, glorified voicemail, you're actually making a real impact by booking the job, and that also secures it.
So it's like contractors, they launch with Avoka, and then they just start seeing meetings get booked. That's such a great.
Oh, this is actually a very good one. We recently went live with AirServe, and they were using
with Lee Downing,
Coda.
Okay.
And this is one of my favorite stories because it's literally just happened very recently, around a month ago. They were using, I'm not going to say the answering service's name, but they were using a very well-established answering service in the trades. They were actually using it for, I think, almost 2 years, and their booking rate was around 40%. When they switched to Avoka, it shot up to 95%, and we were booking them so many jobs that it was too much. It was too much winning. They couldn't handle the amount of jobs that we booked them. They had to do a big hiring. They had to get more technicians because we were just booking them so many jobs. Another story I love, our good friend Billy Bishop and Jessica at Top Flight Electric.
Yes.
Which I know you guys work with as well.
Yeah.
With Hurricane Helene that happened a couple months ago, they had, and we're going to be doing a full-on interview with them as well. But
because they probably were swamped.
They were swamped, but here's the thing: because the entire electricity was out, they couldn't answer the phones anymore because there was no connection. They couldn't actually operate the phones because it was all like voice over IP with Wi-Fi, and so the Wi-Fi was down. So for around 2 days, the only thing that was,
this is not even 24-hour service. This is just like literally their entire business.
They couldn't answer the phone. So the only thing that was answering the phones for them was Avoka.
Holy crap! And so you booked all those meetings for them during those days and they actually told me about that. I was down there during the conference season.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. So I was down there right after the hurricane, and they told me that story.
Yeah.
And it was almost like one of those humanitarian. That's what the testimony is like. What the testimony needs to look like. It was like, Avoka's here to save your business. When disaster strikes, Avoka's there.
I love that story because it's like, that's not at all like the reason, like a use case that we had in mind when we created Avoka.
Yeah.
But it was like one of those things that is like, oh wow, like that, wow, I guess it really did make a difference, and we didn't even think of that being like a big use case.
When you talk about some of those results,
yeah,
like booking rate going from 40% to 90%,
yeah,
it's like a similar amount of growth and value. That sounds like a utility to me.
Yeah.
When people started using Google to advertise.
Yeah.
You imagine the booking, you're competing with somebody who's on the yellow pages. Now you're in Google, and people are just searching you up on Google.
Yeah.
And then you start getting more booking, and so it just becomes a necessity that you need to be on Google. Why isn't everybody on this yet? Like, what are the why would somebody, you get on a call and they're like, yeah, it's not for me. What is the main objection that you get for not getting on it?
Yeah.
When you literally just think about it, it's a machine that's going to be answering the phone 100% of the time.
I think the biggest reason is that this is just such a blind spot for most contractors in the United States and elsewhere too, because no one really thinks that it's important. And everyone's just like, oh, a call center, for years, centuries.
It's just what it is.
It is what it is. I'm going to have Nancy pick up the phone. She's going to do her best. And and then the data, that's the other thing. No one understands the data. You ask 100 contractors what their true booking rate is, I would bet less than 3% actually have a very solid grasp of what their true booking rate is.
Yeah.
And so what we get on calls, and we started doing a lot of cold calling recently, and people are like, oh yeah, no, it sounds cool, but we're all good on the call center front. Our booking rates are 80%.
Because you're seeing meetings coming in.
80%.
So why fix it if it's not broken, right?
Exactly. And it's like, well, because
they don't know how broken it is.
They don't know because they think that their booking rate is at 80%. And when we go in with Avoka Coach and actually look at the data and look at the definitions, because right now service time in the leads column, anything under 60 seconds is considered not a lead.
Right.
When we do deep dives, like 30% plus of those under 60-second calls are actually leads. And so they don't even understand all of the business that they're missing out on. And so they say like, hey, it's 80%. When we actually do the math.
It's like telling somebody who was not on Google, like in the yellow pages, like get on Google to advertise
they
your business.
don't even realize
You don't realize how much business. You only realize when you meet somebody else who's using it and you're like, how much are you booking?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
There's a new standard, right?
Exactly.
It's a new standard. Yeah.
But that is the nice thing about the trades. Like the word does spread relatively quickly. Like we haven't spent $1 on marketing.
Yeah.
And we've been able to get so much organic inbound, obviously like great folks like yourself talk about us at conferences. But yeah, it's really a lot of just the thing I love about the home services is everyone is so generous and wanting each other to win. It's like, it's all about winning together. And so what tends to happen is that, a top contractor in Dallas will tell the story about how Avoka gave them this much more business, and then a contractor in Illinois will start using it, and then it just expands and expands.
We've seen a similar thing with this industry, and then a lot of the founders that we've had on the podcast, and that's one of the things that makes the trades a beacon for founders in tech to come in. And it's just so welcoming of entrepreneurs and so on, and new products and new technologies. So we talked about, obviously. And I kind of want to empathize with you a little bit. So when Rilla started, right, we're a similar thing. It's like the thing we're competing against is the physical ride along, right?
Yeah.
We call ourselves the end of ride alongs, right? And we're competing with a manual process, which physical ride along, it takes you 4 or 5 hours. A virtual ride along with Rilla takes you 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's 100 times, better, faster, more productive for managers. And it was our whole pitch.
Yeah.
And we were educating people on what's the value of the ride along. Similar to you guys. What's the value of actually increasing your booking rate? What is your booking rate?
What is your booking rate?
We would ask people, like, how many ride alongs are you doing? And they would have to think about it because they never thought about it.
Yeah.
They just do it naturally. It's just how the way things are, right?
Yeah.
So we had to do a lot of this kind of like selling this concept. And that was like 2020, 2023.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now. We're now literally every other week. I'm not kidding. Every other week, there's a new Rilla copycat.
I've seen a bunch. Yeah.
You look up Rilla on Google, it's like Rilla copycat, Rilla copycat, Rilla copycat.
Have they started buying the Rilla ad space to?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like you literally need to go through 10 different companies now to get to.
If you search Rilla, you have to go through 10 different companies. Oh my God.
Which I know it's funny because you guys are going through a similar thing from what I see.
There's not one a day or one a week.
But you're seeing
there's a lot more.
But you're probably feeling like, oh, we were educating everybody about this, and now it's like it's working.
Yeah.
And now everybody's like, the bees are coming for the honey. I empathize with you on this because we're going through the same thing. Obviously, you have a tech solution that's competing with a manual process. How are you staying ahead from the other AI call centers that are coming after specifically home service contractors? How are you staying ahead from those people? And how can you quantify like, hey, here's why you go with someone like Avoka versus somebody like any of these other players, all these other copycats that are coming out there? How do you stay ahead?
So I think it's really about.
And I'm asking you this question selfishly so I can learn too.
No. I mean, it's always great to trade notes here. So I think there's a few different things. I mean, obviously there's some things on the technology side that obviously I won't mention just for sake of keeping that private. But I think there's a few different ways. So one is really developing a strong network of customers that love the product and always helps us iterate. And then the second thing is really just the pace of iteration. A lot of times people think that, oh, at a very surface level, it doesn't seem like a very difficult product to get right? Right? You can put, there's a lot of these companies right now, like Bland, et cetera, like, 11 Labs, you can throw an AI voice onto ChatGPT, and you kind of have something that kind of on a very surface level like makes for a good demo. Then when you start to really be in this space like we've been for so long, it comes back to the point I made earlier around this is, if not the number one problem, a top two problem for every contractor. Because it's such a core and fundamental problem and so important to the lifeblood of the business, it's not good enough that it's just halfway decent. It has to be phenomenal. And in fact, it's like my time in self-driving, right? Self-driving has probably been at like a 98% for many years.
But getting that extra, the last
But
mile,
you don't see many self-driving cars
because you haven't got the threshold of delivering the last mile.
And to get that last mile, that last few percentages requires a very, very focused effort. And it requires you to be essentially perfect at every single stage. And so I would say for us, it's just, we do all the very small things well, right? It's not just that, we have
human. It's 1,000 little things that you have to get right.
We don't, it's not just that we have the humans, like we have to have amazing humans. We have to have the right coaches to make our humans incredible. Our AI, it's not just that we integrate with the Service Titan. It's the level to which we integrate with Service Titan and all the small little things that we can do. It's the way in which we're able to think about tonality and how do you structure the conversation so that you can maximize every little bit of booking rate. And it's all the stuff that we're learning in Coach too. Like, I don't think any other player has Coach as well that is able to take insights from the actual human CSRs and kind of drive that back into the AI agent. And so I think, it's just getting the 1,000 little things perfect. And it's that, a lot of the new players, they'll probably learn the things that we learned a year or two ago. But we've already learned those things and we've understood like the pitfalls. And so at the end of the day, it's also just, it's distribution too, right? Like once you become the household name and the established name, you're not gonna want like a good contractor, right? Is not gonna wanna waste their time tinkering around for 3 to 4 months with a solution that may end up actually hurting their business.
Because it doesn't
Because if you don't do this right, you actually can really hurt your business. You can get your customers to hate you. You can lose jobs, which you're spending hundreds of dollars to pay for. Your booking rate go down. Like there's a lot of consequences to not picking the right partner.
This thing that you just mentioned, right? I tell people all the time. If you look at, and we see this with Rilla, I want to give you a few examples here because we've thought about this a lot too, obviously. And so one thing that you mentioned is like, if you become the proven name, the household name, you start working with, the top contractors. You have distribution to manage.
It's just a flywheel. You work with the top contractors.
That's the flywheel that I want to get to.
Yeah.
When people think of software as a service businesses, that's the business model that you and I, we charge you every year or every month for a subscription fee that you keep paying.
Yep.
So that sounds weird, right? Software as a service. What is the service in software? The service is the reason we keep charging customers, the reason any SaaS, Salesforce, ServiceLine, the reason they charge their customers is because we promise our customers that we will service them with our service of innovation. That they keep giving us money every year, and we will innovate to make the product better and better and better so that every year they're giving us money, but the product continues to be better. It's not that you just bought the software and the software stays the same. We continuously make the product better. In a software business, that's why it's usually winner take all market.
Yes.
And you see this all the time.
Yes.
Why? Because we're in the service of innovation. That's what our job is, to take money from our customers, pay for engineers and product people, world-class, that can build a better product.
The best engineers, yep.
And then make the product better so we can generate more money. That's the flywheel. That's the flywheel that you're talking about.
Yep.
If you have an early market like this, like an AI call center, an AI 24-hour service, an AI-powered ride-along, if you have an early market, the player who it's like playing Monopoly almost. If you get those early wins and you become the one that just escapes velocity, then you're the one who starts generating more cash.
Yep.
You start hiring more engineers.
Yep.
They make the product better. So like the time that everybody's like trying to catch up with you 2 years ago, you just keep,
it's a moving target, and it's only getting farther and farther away.
So that's why like you see it, and just for people to put this in dimension, the CRM as a category is a it's $1 trillion category, I would say. The CRM.
Yeah.
Salesforce is the #1 player in that category. They are worth like $300 billion. I need to look at the markets.
Yeah, I think they're like they cracked like the Fortune 100 or very close to that.
They're worth like $200 to $300 billion.
Yep.
HubSpot, which is the second largest competitor to Salesforce, the second largest. I'm not talking about top 10. No. Literally, there's Salesforce and then there's HubSpot.
Yep.
HubSpot is worth about $20 to $30 billion.
Yep.
So they're 10 times less than Salesforce, right?
Yep.
Well, actually, you look at the top search engine, Google. Who's the second one? Bing. Google has 90% of the search market.
I wonder when ChatGPT is going to.
Well, yeah, ChatGPT. You see that with chatbots. You see OpenAI is worth like $100 billion.
Yep.
And then Anthropic, which is the second closest, is worth like $10 billion or something like that.
It's parallels. Yep.
So you see that the difference in value that you get from the top solution versus the second best solution is more than the difference in value that you get from using the second solution to what the status quo was. Why do I say this with Rilla? We realized, we started doing these analysis with some of these copycats or whatever it is. When Rilla started, right? A physical ride-along would take you about 3 to 4 hours because of the drive time. When we started selling in 2022, a virtual ride-along on Rilla would take you about 1 hour and 15 minutes to complete. It's shorter, right? It's like 4 times difference almost.
Yeah, still
an hour.
Still an hour, yeah.
It's still an hour. It takes you 1 hour and 50 minutes to review a ride-along because the AI wasn't that powerful. You couldn't go to the specific modes that you had to review. It was mostly a glorified recording transcription tool, like a note taker.
Yeah.
Fast forward 3-4 years. Rilla now takes you 3 minutes to do a virtual ride-along. The copycats that are coming out takes you 1 hour and 15.
Exactly.
So you see the difference between 1 hour and 15 minutes is 20 to 30 times.
Yes.
Versus 3 to 4 times difference of using a solution versus the baseline.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of, and you see this with NVIDIA. Jensen Huang said earlier that it's like, even if their competitors sold their GPUs for free, like literally for free, it would still cost them, the businesses, to actually more money to go with the competitor of NVIDIA because of the scalability and the flexibility of their GPUs and how quickly they can deploy in your factories.
Exactly.
It's the difference between the top player and the second best is insane when it comes to technology because of this flywheel.
I would say when it comes to technology that is quintessential to your business. I think if there's some technologies that are maybe more on the cost side where it's like, okay, yeah, if it's like a decent amount cheaper and it's like 5% worse, like but something that's quintessential to your business, like both Rilla and Avoka. Exactly. I think that folks are willing to pay a premium, and
to get the 1,000 little things right.
And folks are also don't want to even dabble in something that may actually hurt their business.
The expected value of the risk alone.
The risk, exactly. Yes, exactly.
The risk alone, which you see over and over and over again. Tyson, I do have to run because it's the end of the year here at Rilla. It's the end of our fiscal year, January 2025. Tyson, what else would you want to tell folks before we wrap up here that we didn't mention about yourself, about Avoka? Any plans for the future? You're going to be at the Rilla Masters at our AI panel. It's going to be in February 2025, February 24th or the 25th is when you're speaking probably.
Yeah, I think we're doing the panel with you guys.
Yes.
And then with ProBook as well, Chirp, I think. And then I'll be talking about future AI call centers as well.
Tyson's going to be going deep on AI call centers at the Rilla Masters. Tyson, anything else you want to share with folks before we wrap up here?
Yeah, if you want to learn anything more about Avoka or voice AI in the trades in general, please reach out to me. My number is 717-318-0198. So you can message me or
is it AI that's going to answer the phone?
No, you'll get me. Or you can find us and schedule a great demo with one of our amazing sales folks at.
And it's Avoca.ai.
Avoca.ai.
And it's going to be in the link in the description.
Come to the Masters. We're gonna have a lot of fun, and we're gonna reveal some pretty big announcements as well.
Tyson, so good to have you here, man. Thank you so much for coming. Come to the Rilla Masters and see Tyson going in on the future of AI call centers. Thank you.